Oh, hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to another movie review. I'm Shaun from Zoobox. You know me. You love me. Good guy, Shaun. It's been a minute, but today we're going to take some time out of our day, our busy day, and we're going to talk about the recently released Halloween Kills. The film is directed by David Gordon Green, coming back. He directed Halloween 2018, the third film to have the title Halloween. It's written by Scott Teems, David Gordon Green, and Danny McBride also had a hand in this as well. It stars Jamie Lee Curtis, Judy Greer, James Jude Courtney, Andy Matchik, Nick Castle, Will Patton, Thomas Mann, Dylan Arnold, Jim Cummings, Robert Longstreet, Anthony Michael Hall, and others. The logline plot synopsis here on old IMDb says the saga of Michael Myers and Laurie Strode continues in the next thrilling chapter of the Halloween series. So this one's ended up being pretty divisive, a pretty divisive Halloween movie. Just right off the bat, I don't think I've ever talked about Halloween, really. I don't think I've done anything about any of these movies. I like the Halloween movies. I'm wearing a Halloween shirt. I own 2 Halloween shirts. Although I own those more because I like John Carpenter. But I do like the first Halloween a great deal. I think it is like it's ground zero, one of the ground zero things, one of the foundations that all slasher films were built upon. It happens to be a pretty good one, pretty clever. Better than it has any right to be. Better than any movie that was originally going to be called The Babysitter Killings. It has any right to be. Anyways, like it's just one of those kind of perfect meetings of all the time, history, story, actors, everything just came together in 1978 to bring us Halloween, and it is a seminal movie. It's like a movie, even if you don't really like it, I think if you were a film fan, you could respect it. You know, you would respect the craftsmanship, you'd respect its legacy. It's although as a franchise, it's got a pretty storied, all over the place kind of history, as you know, as far as the sequels go. People have always felt all over the place about the Halloween sequels. They always have. Some people were like very purely only the first Halloween. That's it. In all honesty, this should never have been a franchise. They should have done what John Carpenter wanted to do originally, which was have it be kind of an anthology series called Halloween, whatever. They did it one time with Halloween Season of the Witch, if you remember that movie, which is a lot of fun. But it showed you the potential of where the series could go. But, you know, with finances in mind, with the amount of money the first one made, that didn't happen. You know, so they make Halloween 2, your first Halloween 2, and, you know, and then the rest is history. Because, you know, largely, it's like, so there's Halloween, Halloween 2, Halloween 3, which is its own thing. Then 4, 5, and 6 are kind of its own trilogy, but they are working off of the legacy of the first 2 films. And then they reboot again. Jamie Lee Curtis comes back to reboot the whole thing again, which was not a normal thing at the time for Halloween H2O. The 20th anniversary, Jamie Lee Curtis reprised her role as Laurie Strode, if you remember. And she was also kind of in Halloween Resurrections. But, you know, people have always been all up in air. People have always felt weird ways about the sequels and the reboots and everything. You could always kind of watch like fans cordon off into their own like little cliques based on which Halloween sequels they liked. You know, because there's some people out there that are like diehard Rob Zombie Halloween fans, which I don't really understand. I don't hate those movies, and I think Halloween 2, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, is just a all-timer weird fucking horror flick. You know, he took that energy later on in his career when he did Lords of Salem, which is probably his most underrated movie, and it's probably one of his better movies. Like, if Rob Zombie's made like 4 or 5 movies, it's in his top 3 relative to Rob Zombie movies. You got to keep that in mind, I suppose. But anyways, and I like them all to one degree or another. It depends on the kind of mood I'm in, you know. I've grown to appreciate things. And when I watched Halloween Kills, just like with Halloween 2018, I was surprised at how much reverence it had, not just for the original Halloween, but for all the sequels that they were ignoring. Halloween Kills it felt like a bunch of fan service. I mean, they do a bunch of retconning and all this weird stuff, but but what it presupposes about the character of Michael Myers is the very thing that those wacky sequels, especially 4, 5, and 6, are kind of getting at. And I don't think this is a spoiler. I'm going to keep this as spoiler-free as possible. This is not really a spoiler because Loomis says this all the time, if you're familiar with the series, that Michael is evil incarnate. He is the personification of evil. And it's like a spiritual thing as well as like a literal thing. Like he is kind of a magical, quasi-supernatural boogeyman. The way they kind of explain that away in the other sequels from the past, like I said, especially 4, 5, and 6, is that they bring in this whole occult angle, and there's almost like kind of this essence swapping thing that happens with one of the other characters, a little girl named Jamie, who ends up being kind of like this modern vessel, I suppose you could call it, for the spirit of Michael Myers. And it's weird, it's convoluted, it's very silly. I think they are kind of fun for what they are. But anyways, moving on. This one has a lot of that vibe to it, the vibe of those movies. And then they kind of extend it out a little bit, extend the trauma out, because the first one is clearly about like this, the effect that this has had on Laurie Strode and her family, and her daughter and her granddaughter, and how this one night in Laurie's life has just haunted her forever. It turned her into a lunatic. She basically becomes like Sarah Connor, and she's done nothing but live to prepare for the day that Michael Myers would return. And then you see how that has affected her family, right? It's been corrosive in her life. And in this one, now that she's, for lack of a better way to put it, is proven right, that all of her years of being a crazy old lady was worth it. Now they have to take that and you have to kind of feed the audience a different angle. So it becomes about the spirit and the psychic trauma that Haddonfield as a place, as a population, has felt because of Michael Myers. How the specter has always just haunted the town. Not just for the survivors of that night in 1978. Not just the survivors, even though they are the focus, they're the kind of the prism by which we experience that stuff through. It's just the town writ large. They're all connected to each other. It's like, kind of the magic of small towns, right? And it's in the movie kind of tries to come at it from that angle, like how are they feeling about it? And stare too long into the abyss, get too righteous, you yourself could also become a monster. I think there's even a line said by Sheriff Brackett, who's like the father of one of the girls that gets killed in the original Halloween, and he's like, now he's turning us into monsters just like him. And there's a lot of goofy shit like that in Halloween Kills. A lot of stuff like that. I don't really mind that. And I like that it's kind of goofy. I like that it kind of leans into being stupid. I like that it pays almost very direct homage to the older sequels, the ones that they're disregarding. It has a reverence for it there. It definitely is a Halloween movie made by people that like Halloween, and not just the first one. People that like the franchise. And it seems very clear that they do. I really don't understand like the divisiveness about this. I don't know what people were expecting per se. It's very brutal. It's really hardcore. When it actually is doing stuff with Michael, he's the most brutal he's ever been, is in Halloween Kills. I mean, there's a scene where he takes, I think his name is Larry Clark, Massachusetts comedian extraordinaire, and he just like is fucking... Okay, a little bit of spoilers. I might get to some spoiler stuff from here on out. But I generally like the movie, and I hope through that rambling you can see why. I don't know. I haven't done this in a while. I'm a little rusty. But anyways, so there's Larry Clark. He just like bends him over the fucking kitchen, like the kitchen island, and then just sticks every knife in a butcher's block into him. Just fucking hard too. Just like, ka-chunk, ka-chunk. Like it's brutal. I was sitting there with my wife and we were just like, holy shit. I was like, that's a little much. Feels like a little much. I don't think Michael is that brutal. Like he doesn't have that kind of brutality in his character. Especially if you're basing it off of the original 1978 one. Like he's brutal, he's a brute, but he doesn't seem like he's oh, maybe he does. He does kind of enjoy playing with people, but it just seems so brutal because he's like making the dude's wife watch, and it just seemed more like methodical, more well thought out than a Michael Myers we had seen in the past. I mean, I suppose if you think of it as a sequel to the 2018 Halloween, it seems more appropriate because that one's pretty brutal too. Like nothing Mike Myers likes doing more than just slamming people's heads into shit. It's like, it's fucking kind of like you're taken aback. You're like, holy shit, he just keeps smashing that dude's forehead into the wall. That can't be good. But I don't know. So I like the divisiveness. I don't like know what people are really freaking out about. Like they're acting like this is some great betrayal of the Halloween series or Michael Myers or whatever. It's just like, it's very much a middle chapter. It ends on a giant cliffhanger. And it plays like that. It plays like somebody would describe it as like a feature-length epilogue to the first or to Halloween 2018, and I think that's kind of appropriate because it does not have a ton to say. It's all about just like putting pieces in place for a final confrontation. That's what it feels like most directly. Like, that's really what it's doing with all the characters and all the stuff that the characters from the other movies go through and where they are positioned by the end of the movie. It very much feels like just place setting for a big showdown, the big finale, which I think works, because they thought of this as a trilogy, as a new trilogy. When they did Halloween 2018, it was considered a real trilogy. Also, though, they knew if it didn't do well, that they could end it there. They could just make that one, and that would be it. And that would be a fitting finale in a weird way for the character of Michael Myers. But they have this opportunity to do a trilogy. They clearly have thought of this as a trilogy. It does feel that way. I'm not a big fan of that when it comes to movies, when they have like episodic filmmaking. It's kind of like the Marvel movie. Like every movie is just a commercial for the next movie to go see. And I don't love that. I like things that that are sequels that are also kind of contained. You have to have like a story, even if it's a sequel to a larger story or part of a larger story, has to have like its own thing, its own identity, its own through line, its own character arcs at the very least. This one, it doesn't really have that. I guess the only thing I could say is that the town of Haddonfield and some of the people that were kids 40 years before, they're older and they've been traumatized and they kind of have to come to terms with what that means, and it kind of touches on those things. It kind of explores them, but never goes into any great depth. They do a lot of this with Michael C. Hall's character, who he's Tommy Doyle from the original one. He's the one that Laurie Strode is babysitting in the original film, and he's like the one that you kind of see a lot of this kind of, I don't know, like I hate to, it's almost like condescending to small town. Like he's a small town, like nobody. He's like this hick who's got like rage issues. He wants to make up for being weak or something, or I don't even know. They just don't, there's not enough definition there. And they had plenty of time to. That's the thing. Like the movie has like a few complications that feel like unnecessary, and they don't really do much for even the subtext for what the story is presupposing. Because basically, like I said, it is announcing Michael Myers as a mythic figure. Like, they've had this idea of him being a mythological figure in their lives. He's like kind of legendary, this event. Maybe some true crime maniacs, they like the story of Haddonfield, October 31st, 1978. It's a thing. It's a watershed thing. It's something that people, like a Netflix series would probably be made about it, There'd be a Netflix miniseries, true crime miniseries about Haddonfield and the shape. But so you saw that, like, that's how the like, it's very meta because it's supposed to like parallel how the audience feels about Michael. And now in Halloween Kills, they want to say no, like he is mythic. He is almost, maybe he's supernatural. There's a quasi spiritual angle to all this stuff, and destiny and fate. And what Laurie is the final girl from the 40 years ago. So Laurie's got to be the one. She kind of puts this on herself, and you're not sure if it's some sort of like fanatical delusion or something about her obsession, but she knows that like she has to take out Michael Myers. That's like what she comes to by the end of the movie, because Jamie Lee Curtis for about half the movie is like in a coma-esque type thing where she's at the hospital, she's asleep, because she gets attacked at the end of 2018's Halloween, and she's put out of commission for most of the movie, so she's just in a hospital, and she kind of like starts like getting very esoteric and very like talking about the like kind of the meta nature of Michael Myers to herself and to this new sheriff that they got. What's his name? Good actor. What's his name? Will Patton. He's Officer Hawkins, who I don't think Officer Hawkins is from. I don't think maybe he is from the original movie. Like, I don't remember. I didn't recognize the name, but they do like this flashback thing where they like retcon and they show you. They do a lot of unnecessary shit, like because they show you when Michael Myers gets arrested. We start 2018 Halloween. He's in a mental institution. You just kind of assume they decide to show you like the moment and how it happens, and the reason they do it is to add another element to this. This is the town's trauma. It is not just Laurie Strode. Only to then by the end to say like, well, this is too much of a burden for the town. They can't handle it, and Laurie has really got to be the one to do it. She even says something. It's so goofy, but it's like so entertainingly goofy. She's like, oh, like I need to cut his head off while he's cutting my head off. We need to die together. There's like a line about that in there somewhere, and it made me laugh. A lot of Halloween Kills made me laugh. But I was enjoying it, and I felt so taken. I was so like taken with the movie in a weird way. I just thought it was such an odd movie. It's very much its own thing, but it feels very. If you were familiar with the other Halloween sequels, it feels very appropriate. Like I find it fascinating in the same way that I would find like Halloween 4 and 5 fascinating. And I came to those movies kind of later too. So like I was already like by the time I watched them, I was already like a very critical and critically minded when I would watch movies. And so when I saw it, like I understood like its legacy, and I understood like how people felt about them. And I could go in there with kind of like this different, fresh angle to look at it. And and it made me feel the same way Halloween Kills did. Like I liked Halloween Kills for a lot of the reasons people said they didn't like it. Like it's not going to be for everybody. But it does seem like it's for really hardcore Halloween fans, which I never really thought of myself as, but I guess maybe I'm just like a bigger fan of the franchise than I thought I was. Because, I've seen the first Halloween a million fucking times. Like, so many guys. I saw it in the movie theater last year. I watch it all the time. The sequels, though, I didn't really spend very much time with them until I got, like, that Shout Factory box set. Not the super cool one, the version 2 one that came out. And that's when I first really dived into them. But I find myself going back to them. Because after I watched Halloween Kills, I actually watched it twice. Because I got Peacock for the whole month. So I could watch Halloween Kills at home, which I'd like to go to a theater and support theaters and stuff, but it just wasn't going to happen. So I was like, well, I want to watch it. We'll pay for Peacock for the month. So I ended up watching Halloween Kills the next morning. My son woke up super early, like 6 a.m, and while he was like eating breakfast and watching stuff on his tablet, I watched Halloween Kills again. And then I ended up watching Halloween 4, 5, and 6, and it really does match up very well with the tone and the style, and then in the same, like I said, what those sequels presuppose about Michael Myers. Except they've just like, instead of being as explicit or as literal as they are in 4, 5, and 6 with like the Thorn cult, which is how 6 kind of, that's where they go with Halloween 6, which I watched the producer's cut, which is better than the theatrical cut, but still not very good. But it's the kind of the same thing. It's getting at the same notions about Michael Myers. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I do like, though, that it's not like this kind of, like I said earlier, the spiritual swapping, essence swapping thing that they did with those sequels. I like that it is actually Mike Myers. Like, it is that person. There's no weird cult fuckery, even if it's kind of getting at the same ideas. I do like that. And I will have to say, just like aesthetically, the movie, I really like the look of the movie. The way they shoot some of the kills are awesome. It has a lot of stuff going for it. You're just going to have to be able to let go and just realize it is a Halloween sequel, and it's pretty cheesy. And it's not something I feel like you need to make excuses for, right? There are some movies that come out that people just want to like. One of the more recent examples, I think, would be that Sopranos movie, The Many Saints of Newark, which I did a little bit of a review on. But, like, people were projecting so much of, like, their fandom into that stuff. Like, everything that was bad, they said it was good because they're like, oh, it's obviously intentional because of this, that, or the other reason. There's a little bit of that with Halloween Kills, but I do think overall, though, it is very part and parcel with the rest of the series. And I think if you're a fan of the series in general, you're going to like Halloween Kills. I'd be very surprised. And I like that it didn't... People wanted it to be some sort of grim, dark, joyless, whatever. And which I don't understand, because Halloween 2018 was not that. I think a lot of people thought it was going to be that, because every time we reboot a franchise or something, they're just like, oh, it's going to be the dark, intimidating version, the dark, spooky version of this, like the hardcore version. Like they got that with Rob Zombie. They got this kind of joyless, violent, fucking masochistic deal with that one. And they wanted that David Gordon Green to do the same thing, I guess. I don't know. I enjoyed it. Listen. It's not going to be for everybody. I do think it has some problems. I think it's a little loosey-goosey with some of its themes, and there is no real character arcs. It plays like a middle chapter, but not in a... It'll probably play better once you can watch all three of the new ones back-to-back. I think it'll probably play smoother, because it is ostensibly, it's like one giant night. It's like story, 3 movies, basically takes place in the same day. So it might flow better that way because it does feel like interstitial. It feels like in the middle of something. Mise en scene, if you will. And yeah, I can understand, though, people not liking it. I do get it, but I just kind of went with it. It was a big, dumb, stupid slasher movie. And I was okay with that. And I think it's much better than the vast majority of these kind of big, dumb slasher movies that we get. I mean, it's been a while. What's the last real slasher movie? I mean, like the Saw movies, the torture porn stuff, that kind of took over. It was like The Collector, maybe. I'm trying to think of what was the most recent horror slasher villain person. The Collector, Jigsaw, The Collector. There's probably something else in there that I'm just not thinking of. The Collector is okay, actually. Those are okay. They're not great, but for what they are, they're pretty solid. Which is kind of like a mixture of, it's like Saw and a more traditional slasher movie. But anyways, I've been talking for a long time. I hope some of this made sense. I enjoyed it. If you were a fan of the franchise writ large, I think you'll enjoy it, even if it is far from perfect. Far from perfect, but it is a fucking Halloween sequel. And I think, really, honestly, it's a fair qualification, in my opinion. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you next time, real soon. Maybe even later today. You might get 2 movie reviews today. I'm going to the theater. All right. Goodbye.